Yes, recording.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so welcome again, everyone, for being here. And Tolulope, do you want to advance the next slide? I want to do a bio of you.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to take this time to now introduce to you Dr. Tolulope. Here's what she brings to the table. Dr. Tolulope is a soil scientist and agronomist specializing in sustainable and resilient agricultural systems. With extensive international experience, she focuses on soil fertility, nutrient management, and circular economy innovation to enhance productivity and environmental sustainability. She has led adaptive field research, collaborated with global institutions, and trained thousands of farmers and professionals. Currently, she serves as sustainable agricultural field lead in inclusive prosperity, where she leads the Farm Field School and farmland access programs, advancing climate resilient farmers solutions. Now, I can go on and on about the great work she's been doing, but I think I would not do her justice. So, Dr. Tolulope, please take the floor.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone, and I'm glad to be here. I'm grateful for the privilege to speak on this session. So I'm going to give a sort of rough overview of what we do at Inclusive Prosperity. But just like I was introduced, I will probably spend some time talking about my aspect of the work within Inclusive Prosperity. So Inclusive Prosperity has different sides to it. And the part of it that I lead is like the agricultural part. However, I would make effort to cut across the different things that we do at Inclusive Prosperity. So thank you for being here. And as we go on, if you have questions, you can put them down. And at the end of my presentation, we'll be willing to take questions. And if I can't answer them right now, you can reach us via email and we can provide more clarity regarding whatever you want or what we are able to offer. So what is Inclusive Prosperity to start with? Inclusive Prosperity, or IP for short, was incorporated in August of 2024 as a subsidiary of Fair Finance Fund. Fair Finance Fund is a social finance organization, and the birth or the development or the creation of Inclusive Prosperity came as a result of a feasibility study that was carried out by Fair Finance Fund, and it brought to the forefront of what racialized people in particular face or experience when they are trying to enter or start a farming business or start a food entrepreneur business here in Canada. And that's made it clear, or just brought it to confirmed some of the challenges. And Inclusive Prosperity was kind of created or birthed to address those challenges that have been there for several years. So I go back to say that Inclusive Prosperity is a non-profit organization, and the purpose or the work that we are doing is to challenge and dismantle barriers for equity deserving, racialized, marginalized farmers and food entrepreneurs. So our focus is actually on farmers and food entrepreneurs, and our mission is to find innovative ways of addressing and redressing the biases that exist within the governance, operations, and lending practice of conventional institutions. For anyone that is trying to start an agricultural or food business in Canada, some of these governance or operational practices are there, and unfortunately, many of us are not able to penetrate because of those systemic barriers. So that's vision, the mission on which IP is found. And our vision is to again find innovative ways of how we can cultivate, and that's where the word inclusive comes from, all of us, and an equitable food sector that allows everyone to achieve prosperity. And prosperity can come in different ways, economically, and a sense of community or belonging, while nurturing a sustainable and resilient food systems, not only for this current generation, but for generations to come. Particularly, I love here, like 2 days ago, I was speaking with someone whose father had been in the food sector and then is carrying it over. I love hearing like transgenerational farmers and all. So what we are trying to do at HiP is not just for this generation, but hopefully that people that we are able to assist, or that are able to dig their feet in the soils of sustainable agriculture in Canada can even pass it on to generations yet unborn. So I would move on to give you a very rough overview of our team. We're a very small but mighty team. So we have our executive director, and we have so I will talk more about some of the things that we do as we move on, but just giving you an overview of who we are as a team. So we have our executive director. We have one of our funds called Nourish Fund, and that is coordinated by Mitchell. And you can see myself as the agricultural field lead. And then we have someone who is in charge of our communications. And we also have a loan officer. That's to tell you that Nourish Fund loan is all about finances and all of that. And I am there as the agricultural field lead. And then we have someone who puts together our communication materials and all of that. So, and amazingly, this 5 of us are females. Isn't that amazing? Okay, so I would go back to some of these things are not new to many of us that are here, but just want to give a little bit context of why HiP came into being, and just give a rough overview again of the barriers that particularly racialized agri entrepreneurs face, especially in Canada or in more developed countries generally, but focus tonight is on Canada. So there is the challenge of entry costs, and which goes to say that rural and urban farming start costs are highly capital intensive. Highly capital intensive is just a word, but it can spread across different things. If you talk of the land, the infrastructure, the operating credit, so many things that are in that box of entry cost. And over the last few months, I would say I have a friend who has been trying to navigate all of that, and I have a little bit of how that can be, because before you talk of what it takes for you to acquire land, for example, and then you want to build the necessary infrastructures, and then the operating costs are all there. Truthfully speaking, many of us do not have what it takes, and that makes it challenging, even if you are interested, even if in fact, I realize that sometimes with the people I've met in recent times, many people even have farms back in whatever places they are coming from. But when they get here, these entry costs are a barrier for them to actually continue on that part of farming or agriculture. This is really a fact. Now, more often than not, there are also the fact that there is not enough capital and support, especially for people that are starting new. Across my work so far in Canada, I've met third generation farmer, fifth generation farmer, because there's already something that is already built for those people, and then they can continue from where their fathers or great grandfathers started. But for some of us, we are first generation, especially here. Some of us are newcomers, we're racialized, and all of those things. It's easy for someone who is a third generation to say, oh, the farm has been operating for like 50 years and everything is established, even though there might be need for maybe infrastructural renovation or stuff like that, but you are not starting exactly from the scratch. That's the point I'm trying to make. But for many of us, that's where we are, and then that challenge is there, and it creates, unfortunately, creates a barrier. The third thing is, yeah, so this is a very interesting point that I like to say. Many of us grew up with certain food that, unfortunately, when we come here, we don't find it. And even though there is the like, as we move on, as we try to find what's workable, how can, especially because some of our crops are still being imported, many communities lack this culturally appropriate and locally produced food, and the cost of importing is very expensive, you know. And even when this produce come in, they are probably not exactly fresh anymore, and then you have to pay. I'm sure that many of us that patronize Afro Shop knows that we buy things at more expensive cost, but unfortunately, even people that are interested or want to know how to probably grow these crops here, they don't have the opportunity to, because of these systemic barriers that have been in place. And then the whole idea of this is that these barriers have prevented communities from building generational wealth through agriculture and food ventures. Yes, so all of those things I've mentioned about how that I've been privileged to meet transgenerational farmers in Canada, for example. Unfortunately, if we cannot overcome those entry costs, capital support, and food system inequity, those barriers will always be there, and we cannot start building that generational wealth through agriculture and food ventures. However, one of the things that we have discovered is that there is demand. There is demand for what we can do, or there is demand for the kind of market that we can bring in. And for example, there is an increasing diverse and conscious consumer population is increasing, and there is increased demand for locally produced and culturally relevant food. I'm going to show you a slide later on as we move on that can confirm this. But what it all means is that the population of Canada is becoming very diverse. There are people coming from different places, and there is that demand for culturally relevant or food that are how will I explain it? That are not necessarily native to what is here. However, the market that we still have does not exactly represent what the demand is looking like. So that creates an opportunity for anyone who is interested to be able to get into that space and produce crops for those for the demand that is already on ground. But unfortunately, if we cannot pass through those barriers, we cannot get into the opportunity space. Also, as of today, if you Google it and check the average age of farmers in Canada, is about 55 years. And that's to tell you that there are so many farmers that are retiring. Amazingly, there are some that are able to transfer what they've been building over the years to their children, as the case may be. But unfortunately, some of those children are not interested, which means that if we don't get into that space of encouraging young farmers to come into these changing landscapes, who is going to continue producing our food? And every time I talk about this, that even though many years ago in elementary school, we learned the basic needs of man. Regardless of how things continue to change, food will continue to be a basic need of man. However, the production, the systems around it has to also be, it remains important. And while the landscape may be changing and all of that, there has to be that space where there will continue to be people that are producing food for human consumption, especially again as our population continues to increase. So this creates an avenue for new farmers and young farmers to penetrate that space of agriculture. Finally, which in one way or the other also links to the consumer demand or local market. There is also an increasing percentage of entrepreneurs. The amazing thing is, especially with what I've seen so far, there are people that are interested. There are people that have questions and they feel, oh, I'm new, I've been doing this, I don't know where to start and all of that. So that interest is growing. But if we don't channel those things very well, these people might just be met with the barriers and they won't be able to move on from there. So yeah, so equity disturbing farm and food entrepreneurs represent a growing but underfinanced market. So I'll go to show you this slide, which says that 41% of Canada and 63% of Toronto population will be visible minority by 2031. That is, there will be that increase in diverse population. However, the current local food supply doesn't reflect this. And more often than not, those culturally relevant food are still imported. There's a lot of money being spent in importing, and then we pay a lot to get them before they get here. Sometimes they're not as fresh as they should. And this population continues to increase. So where do we bridge that situation such that those culturally relevant crops can actually be grown here, especially as this population continues to increase, and we don't necessarily have to find ourselves in a place where we pay more for what is being imported. So this slide is a slide from the first virtual session of our farmer field school, which I will still talk about, and it just tells us that the Canadian population mix is changing. It's not the same like what it used to be over 20 to 30 years ago, and many of us, including myself, I still, as amazing as it is that we are here, but our food has been part of us for decades. It's always very difficult to say, oh, this is what is available now, this is what I'm going to eat. Our body still craves for those things that we grow up with, and then we can travel miles to get what we are used to. But is there a way in which those things can actually be grown here and we can find them in our regular supermarkets, for example? That's part of the way we are starting to think at HiP. So I will just go on to tell us what our structure is currently built around. I mentioned earlier when I started that we were incorporated as a subsidiary of Fair Finance Fund in 2024 of August, which means we are actually less than 2 years, you know. And in those 2 years, there's been the start, there's been the shift, there's been so many things that has come into play, and as we walk around and figure things out, even as we move. So I'll just show you this, and then I would explain them as we move on. So we have what we call capital support, and that is a way in which we can support people with funds or capital based on what they're already doing. And then we have agricultural support, which is actually where I come in. We also have business support. That is, there are some entrepreneurs that are already doing something, but they're having challenges with putting their finances together, applying for grants and all of that. And then we can sit down with them and see how that goes. We are also, as much as possible, trying to, because what we recognize, and as many organizations will say, is that you can't work in silos. You can't just say, oh, this is what we want to do, without actually collaborating or networking with others. So as we move on, we also try to stay in respective relations, either with the people that we are working with on the field, or even our different partners here and there, and all of that. So we have, in fact, apart from African Canadians, for example, our work is also tailored towards Indigenous people. So I would run through the different parts of what we do. So the first thing is, I mentioned at the start about being incorporated as a subsidiary under Fair Finance Fund. And when IP started, it was majorly to look into different funding solutions, particularly tailored towards racialized people, especially African Canadian farmers. And then we also have the Nourish Fund. So I would talk a little bit about the African Canadian Farmers Fund. It's a rent to own model in which IP acquires farmland, or the farmer acquires farmland, and IP provides long-term access. It's a way in which if you're already farming, maybe on a small acreage, and your business has been doing well, or you have recorded some success, and then you want to expand, or you feel that, oh, if I expand, this business is going to generate more income and all of that, then you can come to us. We either look for farmland for you, or we ask you to look for farmland, and then the process is that we get the farm through some of our collaborations and fund, and some of our funders. I'll talk about that as we continue. And then we also have we run investment campaign from time to time, so that people can know what we are doing and see how to support. Then the farmers operate the land, and they build equity over time through structured lease payments. The goal is that after some time, the farmers can eventually transition towards full ownership of the land. So there will be a time where that, like I said, is a rent to own. So it starts by us acquiring it, then you rent it for some time, and over time it becomes your own personal property. And with that, we've tried to reduce barriers to farmland access, while we enable or create an environment for farmers to build generational wealth. Now, our second fund is targeted basically towards food entrepreneurs, and this is a flexible way of granting loans up onto 50,000 Canadian dollars. And this is you apply, and then we assess those applications, and then we see what qualifies, what we have to sit down and talk about. This Nourish Fund is actually divided into 3 different kinds of loans. There's standard loans, there is I can't remember all of it now, but I know that it's divided into 3 different kinds. There's micro loans, there's standard loans. All of those information, you can check them out on our website. And depending on how we see the impact of what you're doing, excuse me, you can have a flexible means of payment, and the money that is paid is also used to finance new entrepreneurs. So with this kind of funds, we also try to dismantle capital and support barriers for traditionally underserved communities. What I've summarized so far is the 2 kinds of investment or funding opportunities that we currently have, either for purchase of farmland. And just going back to that, each of these funds have different requirements or eligibility criteria. For example, for African Canadian Farmers Fund, you must have been farming for 3 years. You must have had like record. You must have recorded some record from your farming business, for example, for us to pick it up. Like we would like to support you, So I'll go on to talk about agricultural support. When IP started, it was majorly as a kind of funding or capital support. But as we moved on, we also realized that there are some people that they are interested in agriculture in Canada, but they don't even know where to start from. They don't know who to talk to. And that was where I came in. And through what have been the people that I've networked and met so far, we realize that this is a major need. So if we are even looking at somebody that would want to that wants like 3 years of experience, for example, but you don't even know where to start from or who to talk to, and then more often than not, many people also come in and then they realize that, oh, the weather is completely different. Everything is different here. Can I grow this? Can I grow that? Especially with some of the questions that we received in our farmer field school. So that's where my own part of what IP is doing came into be. So I actually came into this role in October 2025, and I was able to develop what we refer to as a farmer feed school program, which we are running the first pilot this year. We had nice virtual sessions from January to March where we looked at what it takes to farm in Ontario from the perspective of an equity deserving person. You know, it's different. The farming landscape in Canada is different. More often than not, you hear of the big hogs, the 1,000 acres, which are beautiful. However, there are still some of us that we don't even have the capacity for 10 acres. So how do we even start? So that was what this was about. So we had 9 sessions running through January to March, and what you see here was actually the 7th session, which was talking about sales collaboration, sales channels, collaboration, and farm hubs. We talked about soil. We talked about food sovereignty. We talked about storage, just different aspects of what farming could look like, especially from the racialized point of view. And like I say, farming does not stop in virtual sessions. So we are moving to the field next month. We are moving to have hands-on sessions next month where we would also have knowledge sharing and all of that on the field, looking at how to actually grow some of these culturally relevant crops here in Ontario on the field. One of the things I would like to say about the Farmer Feed School is that at least for this pilot, it was targeted towards both new and established farmers. So we had a mix of participants, and it wasn't necessarily about teaching, so to speak. It was knowledge sharing. There are some people that have been doing some things before, especially we had a couple of people who were already gardening, and then they are looking at, oh, it looks like this thing is doing well. Maybe I can transition to actually growing and selling. And I was also privileged to work with facilitators who had tried their hands on a couple of things. They failed, they've learned from their experiences. And the moment they come to share in the sessions, they are answering the questions of people who feel like, I don't think I can do this here in this country. The weather is not favorable and all of that. But just hearing that, oh, this person has been doing this for about 5 years. They have their market, they have their CSA, and there are people that are even paying before the start of the season and all of that. That made it's reinforced possibilities in people that are still trying to find their feet. That was what the Farmer Field School, especially the hands-on, the virtual session was about. And then we are moving on to the hands-on sessions next month. The other part of the agricultural support is we have been able to, and we are still open to partner with different organizations that have farmland for rent, and they are willing to rent, particularly to racialized people. So right now we have one in Tiverton for this season, and we'll put a structure in place where we can rent them at subsidized prices. And we also have a partnership conversation going on with another farm in South Frontenac that we're still trying to put together the infrastructure, because farming is not just about having farmland. You can have land, but there's still a lot of infrastructures that have to be put into it. For example, you want to create irrigation, you want to ensure that you have storage and so many other things. So we are still trying to put all of that together for the other farm, which will most likely come up in the next next year farming season. So that's the rough overview of what our agricultural support is about, and I'm privileged to lead all of that. And of course, when we have sessions, there are questions, there are contributions, and as soon as we started this, I just got that feel that this is needed. This is something that a lot of people are interested in. And in fact, even though this was limited to Ontario, however, I had people come writing in from Nova Scotia, BC, and all of that. They were interested. But for this season, it was for this year, it was majorly limited to Ontario. But we had one of our participant that was from Nova Scotia that I had to let in because I could really get the interest, and she's had some exposure to like the practicals. Because for virtual sessions, people can join from anywhere, but for hands-on sessions, we have to do that in person here in Ontario. So I'll move on to business support. So the way the business support operates is that there are some people of racialized background that they already have their business, but they are struggling maybe with the financial part of it, or they are trying to apply for loans and grants or whatever, and it's not just adding up for whatever reason. So we create that environment in which we can support them through mentorship. And this is something that, again, more information is on our website. You can apply or register, and then you'll be paired with one of our mentors that would walk you through your business, help you to see where you need to cut down costs, where you need to adjust a few things, and that can position you in a better place to apply for grants or loans. One of the things that I've seen in Canada HAG is that there's actually opportunity for people to apply for grants and loans and all of that. But if your financial statement or your finances is in a very terrible place, it will be difficult for you to assess that. And of course, it also requires certain level of experience or certain income. Like I come across, especially on LinkedIn, for example, I come across, you can apply for this fund or for this grant, but you must have been earning maybe $200,000 from your business or whatever the case may be. But the whole idea is that depending on how many years you have or how much income you're making, this business support part of what we do just helps to tidy things up so that you will be qualified for some of these things. And there are actually some that are also for small scale farmers. For example, I know that there are, for some small, even by racialized people, for example, you can apply for certain grants that allows you to hire summer students, for example, and then the government covers like 50% of their income, and you can cover the remaining. So that's like a way in which your labor for your farming business is subsidized. If you don't have knowledge, if you don't know how that works, then you miss out of such opportunities. So that's part of what this is about, and part of the information we share even in our farmer fit school. So what we are building with all of these is that we are trying to create an environment or a space where some of these challenges, land, capital, agricultural training, and opportunity is something that can be accessible to all. Even though our focus is on, again, racialized people, new immigrants, Africans, Caribbeans, and all of that, we don't turn people away, but those are like our focus. And with this, what we are trying to do is to increase participation, particularly for people that might not find it easy to get into that sector. We're trying to increase that participation. We're also trying to strengthen local food systems, and particularly increase our local production. When I mean local production right now of culturally relevant food, which many of us crave for, at least I do, and I'm sure many of us on this call are possibly like me. And of course, when you establish your farming business and it's thriving, I'm not going to tell you that you would not make mistakes. Like even in our farmer face, we say, if you don't try, all of these things that we are telling you, if you don't try, you won't know where the mistakes are or where your corrections are. But the moment you try, you make your mistakes, you learn from it, and then you get better. But the point is that you can also create, it can be a source of income, it can be a stream of income for you. And as you grow, as you expand, it could actually be a major business that many of us might take on as our full-time job, or if that's yeah, something like that. So again, part of what we're trying to do is also climate resilience. We try to encourage regenerative agricultural practices, for example, and also sustainable agricultural practices. We focus on in our agricultural farmer field school support and all of that. We talk a lot about soil health. We talk a lot about, excuse me, how it's important that you're using the soil and the environment, so to speak, in sustainable manners, so that you don't just use it and forget about it, but you leave something for future generations to come. So that's part of what we also focus on. We try to look into biodiversity, for example, and interestingly for our farmer field school this year, we looked into crop production systems, different parts of it that are sustainable, that don't necessarily that you can continue without being of negative impact on the environment. That's what I'm just trying to summarize, because there are actually agricultural practices, unfortunately, that have negative consequences on the environment, and this is, like we say, the soil we have is what we have. So if we don't use it in a sustainable way, it will be challenging for future generations to continue. So I'm rounding up now, and you can check our website, www.inclusiveprosperity.ca. There's a lot of what we're doing that is on our website. You can also check us on Instagram at Inclusive Prosperity. If you have any general questions, you can write to us. I'm sure that when you go through our website, whatever things that you're interested in, you can find whoever to reach via emails. For example, if you go to ACFF, that's African Canadian Farmers Fund, or if you go to Nourish Fund, it will direct you to who to write. But if you have general questions, you have it. And if you have questions around the agricultural part of what we are doing, the farmer field school and land access, for example, you can always reach out to me. My email is what you have there. Okay, so I wanted to just mention briefly that for the agricultural support part of our work, again, we are less than 2 years, and this started this year, although I've started working on it towards the end of last year. However, it's a pilot, and we are hoping that we can continue. We are hoping that we can scale up. We have big ambitions and dreams, as the case may be. We are hoping that we can scale it up even to province-wide and all. So even though for this year registration is closed, we're moving on already. But as soon as this year's season rounds up, we'll most likely start taking registrations for 2027. And I already have a wait list. I have about 3 or 4 people on the wait list for that. However, our work is made possible by funders. All of these things that we are talking about, it still boils down to what is available to run it. For example, the farmer field school agricultural support of the work that I'm currently doing is actually funded through the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture via the Agricultural Workforce Equity and Diversity Initiative. So we are hoping that we can continue to have some of this funding so that we can deliver these services. And there are also others of our funders, basically funders or partners that make our work possible. But over the last almost 2 years, we've seen how important our work is, and how having funds or being able to scale up or continuity is based on our funding. However, the work remains important, and we hope that we can continue to do more. So I hope I wasn't too fast. Thank you everyone for listening. And this brings me to the end of my presentation.
Thank you very much, Tolulope. Very, very good presentation. We scheduled the time till 8 p.m. and so we have some time. If you don't mind, maybe we can take 1 or 2 questions from.
No, this is amazing. Thank you.
Yes. So I think, yeah.
Peter said, does IP support a pre-revenue startup? This is from Peter. in the comments.
Trying to check. So what does it mean by pre-revenue? Like you don't have anything at all?
It's a new business idea with food. Yes, so it's not yet operating. It's
Well, I think that would depend on what kind of support. Like it says, does it support? So what kind of support? I feel that if it's on like funds, no, because I know that our two funds, the ACFF, for example, must have at least 3 years of you're already working. We can see what you're doing, and the Nourish Fund has at least 2 years. However, if it's in agricultural support or business support, agricultural support in particular, so for our farmer field school, for example, many of the people that we have do not have any, some of them don't have any business at all. There are some people that are just interested and want to learn. So if that is it, then we can give that kind of support. But if it comes to funds, then we want to at least see, even if it's 1 acre, even if it is 0.5 acre, we want to see what you've been able to do by yourself for us to be able to support you. And even if it's our business support as well, we want to see what you've done or what you're doing for us. But you can reach out, especially for the business support, you can reach out and but I wouldn't, because we want that's the only way we can confirm that you are already doing something, not just like interest, or just interest. So the best support we give to people like that is like training them on how to start, and then when you start, you can now access some of our funding opportunities.
That makes sense.
any other question?
Emmanuel, hey, welcome.
So thank you, Claudius. Yes, I have a question, but I picked up the train on the way. I was at the greenhouse watering, so I couldn't lock up on time. I'm sorry about that.
No worries, man.
I heard had talk about funding. I probably will be looking for the contacts that are mentioned. We are a farm that is currently operating and at the growth and expansion phase already. So the issue of funding is always very challenging, especially for those who are actually implicated in doing the thing on a daily basis. That administrative part of it, or going to look for it, sometimes we lack the time, resources, or expertise to really go to target the right one. So my question is, for a farm that is existing, has operations, is producing, is selling, and is at the expansion phase, so it's really looking for some level of substantial funding. Is this possibly one of the clients that can hop onto your system?
Okay, thank you very much for your question. Yeah, so you're correct. So the questions I'm going to ask is, how long have you been operational for? Where are you located, and all of that. However, if you're operational and you have at least 2 or 3 years, I'm sure that either of our funding might be a possibility for you, either Nourish Fund or ACFF. Although ACFF is a larger one, so you might want to look into Nourish Fund and contact the Mitchell, who is the coordinator of Nourish Fund. And more often than not, we have some of those information on our website, but when you reach out to us, we try to see which one in particular actually fits where you are or where you're going. So there are sometimes like kind of tailor-made solutions to what your situation is. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So what I will encourage you is you can check out our website, check what Nourish Fund, because like I said, Nourish Fund we have micro loans, we have standard loans, and then you can look into that and contact the person in charge. They would either set up a meeting or respond to your emails and all of that. But I'm very sure that if you're operational at least 2 or 3 years, you you would you can come to us, and then we'll talk about what is visible for your current farming stage or business, as the case may be.
Tolu, I'm going to ask a question on behalf of some of the audience members, because I was pleased to see that you mentioned in your presentation food producers
Yes.
as well as
I was going to say
farmers.
that.
So are you able to, do you have examples of food producers that you've supported that you can speak to in general in terms of what businesses they're doing, or help them to scale or start, or able to speak to that in any way?
Yeah, so there's been some, especially I think around Scarborough. I don't have like the particular names in my head, but I know that there are like food entrepreneurs, like maybe people processing either from fruits or vegetables or something like that, that are already part of people on our list of that have been able to either apply or we are in contact with for support. Yes.
So that
So
would
not
be like
just
to help them manufacture or to scale to get their products to outlets, kind of.
yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So the Nourish Fund is so we, apart from checking how many years they've been in operation and what that looks like, we also look at the impact of their business in the environment. That if we give them loans or if we support them, that impact will be increased, something like that. So those are part of the things that we look out for when we are processing those applications.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put you on the spot a little bit because it's our space to do so.
Okay.
Now, one of the things that attracted me to inclusive prosperity is the fact that the breakout or the separation from Fair Finance Fund to actually solve a problem, and that is the problem that is for us that we need. So now clearly you can't just mindful, you can't just say, okay, here's money to everyone and all and sundry.
Would be nice.
How are we separating? How is inclusive prosperity separating itself to make sure that, you know, what specific problems that are general to the, if you like, white way of doing things, that inclusive prosperity can say, this is one way that we're doing things different to help our people?
Okay, thank you very much. Well, I think I mentioned that, maybe not specifically. So for example, if you look at, okay, so let me bring it down to, this can be in different ways, but let me bring it down to like the part of like farmland access that we are doing, for example. So if you are going to rent land in other places, there are some requirements that you have to provide, you know. And one of the things that we are trying to do on our hand is the realization that some of our people do not have those requirements. So we sort of soften what is required for them to be able to access those things. And we also try to put like the cost of renting, for example, we try to reduce it so that it can be affordable for our people. So that's what I can mention. And another thing is like the rent to own model. Through the plan that we put in place, you don't necessarily have to put in a lot of funds at the beginning, because we stay in that gap. And as more importantly, through investors fund, we try to start that process, jumpstart that process, and then you can pay gradually, and then the farm becomes yours after some years. So it's just like sort of softening the pedal, if I can put it that way.
Yeah, the rent to own is certainly, I see that as a model that actually helps to address that. The one thing I would hope, I mean, certainly one of the things you've mentioned a lot about criteria, but thankfully you've not mentioned, for example, the worst thing that our diaspora suffers is credit score.
Actually, that was something I wanted to mention, but I'm like, okay, because for example, for our farmland access, why that is technically required if you're renting from others, we try to soften that pedal and ask for other things like interest, like readiness, like for example, if you're a participant in our farmer feed school and we've seen your participation that is top notch and all of that, we could waive some of those things for you just by measuring how you're showing up, how you're asking questions, how you're engaged, and all of that, so that you can at least start that process. Like I said, there are some opportunities, grants that are available for people, but you must already be making some money. You must be in the business before you can access those things. So we try to make that entry a little bit easier for our people so that they can meet some of those requirements and then access more opportunities. So at least as at today, I can tell you that some of our farmland access programs, even though I'm being careful with what I say, but even some of our partners will request that from other people, because we are in this conversation with them, they try to make it softer because we are in that conversation to say, not all of our people have this, but we can gauge their readiness, we can gauge the interest by other factors and not necessarily this.
Okay. I don't want to dominate the questions, but if I can ask one more, the land that is available now, what is the acreage for that?
Okay, so it's about 15 acres. However, we've had some conversations around our irrigation infrastructure, which is currently being worked on. And so the total acreage possibility for this year is limited because of that. But as we move on, we're sure that those things can be fixed. Again, like I said, farming is not just having farmland. There are so many other things that are in the picture. Yeah.
Others, please. It's not just my voice. Anyone want to ask a question?
Sarah, you good?
Okay.
Ayo, you have any questions?
I see a question in the chat, so I'll just go for it.
Oh. Hello?
Go for it.
Hi.
Hey.
Excuse me.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Yeah, please go for it.
Okay. We over from the end of last year with Claudius, we had been working on a concept that concerned what we had thought of like franchising, that is like really building an expansion model that is based on tapping on the blueprint and experience of a farm like ours, which is operational, which has been operating since 5 years plus, to grow that expansion so that new people coming in, your concept of farmer field schools is excellent, but like really have experienced farms that are established, that are dealing with the irrigations and all of that, that are operational, that are selling. So we had started the theoretical concept and thought of it from a franchising point of view, but this could be different based on whether which funding opportunity is. It could be reframed into another thing. What if someone came with a model like that, expansion model that is based on a copy paste of a system that is existing already? Would you be able to think of the funding like funding a system that is developing rather than just a single farm? Can that be something that is interesting for you for us to present such a concept?
Okay, I think that is something that we can think through. It's something that we can think through. Like I said, we are not up to 2 years, but as we see things, like for example, the old IP started with just Nourish Fund and ACFF, and then as we moved on, some other things came into the picture. So if we see what you're talking about, and it sounds like a visible way of something that we can include, that would also serve some people and also make impact, we can look into it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a question in the chat by Ray Gabari. Is there an opportunity to support farmers from a supplies, automation, logistics, and packaging perspective?
Good question.
I absolutely believe that will be something that will be necessary as we move on. So I mentioned earlier that our farmer field school is pilot. Many of our farmers, some of them are moving out to start 0.51 acre this year, for example. However, as they move on, this is something that would become necessary. So it's something that we can look into, especially because depending on the slide I showed earlier was talking about sales channels, collaboration, and farmers sell their produce. However, that packaging is a major part of it, and it also depends on the quantity. So if you are selling something that is large, then you definitely need maybe more packaging and all of that. But if not, probably your packaging is not going. So it depends on eventually what the farmers start to do or continue to do. But I believe that's something that can be explored as we move on.
Volume.
That's
Yeah.
good.
Okay.
Hey, Jean, do you have anything to add? You good?
Okay, so we've gone past, we did start late, so we're prepared to just stretch it a little bit. So we've now gone past 8 and no more questions coming in. Tolu, fantastic presentation.
Yeah.
Way more than
Thank
I
you.
actually
Thank you.
anticipated. Very, very informative. For those that joining late, we've recorded the session and it will be shared. I urge you, if you didn't see the beginning, watch it. Seriously, watch it. It is very, very informative session. I really, really feel proud in ourselves. It's where we're heading as a company. And thank you very much for providing this time with us, and look forward to meeting you again, or meeting you in person at some point, including Afua when she gets back. So I believe that there will be further need to talk, meet, support, because you really spoke the language of what we've come to understand and what we ourselves are looking to solve and to bring in terms of opportunity to the community. You really spoke it. So thank you very much. I'm grateful for your time.
Thank you for having me, and I hope yes, future collaborations and all. I think I shared this with you, but before this thing came into being, there was our facilitator that already spoke about the Fred app, just talking to our farmers about how they can actually connect with buyers. So that was something that it was even within our community before we came to this point of, oh, let's have a webinar, so
excellent.
That's something that was already being discussed. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. Yes, and one thing I can say here, and then in the webinar next one, then the one after, Fred is about to go up to the moon and land beyond what the Americans did. We're going to land. They did not land. They pretended that they went to the moon. We are going to land. What's coming? Oh my goodness. I can tell you now, I'm going to be brave and say it, Colin. Spoiler alert.
Go for it.
You're going to be able to
existence.
talk to Fred in your dialect and he knows what you're talking about.
Mhm.
That's great.
And you'll be able to say, how do I grow F4? And it will tell you how to grow it in the climate, in greenhouse, outside in the land, or in vertical farming.
Mhm.
That's beautiful.
Okay.
Good job.
So be patient with us. We're not quiet. We're just doing
we're working.
the most amazing things that nobody else is doing.
Yeah.
You know, like this. I mean,
That's great.
oh my goodness. I'm just excited by this presentation. We're gonna get you back in some capacity.
As I always say, every great opportunity in life, it all starts with a conversation.
Excellent, excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks everyone for giving us your evening. And
Yep.
I don't know who's missed dinner. I definitely have not had dinner yet, so it's gonna be a late one. Thank you.
All right.